It's that time again, my night owls, where we journey back in time in search of love. Ah, but love is like a bed of roses. Will we land on the soft petals or the thorny stems? Let's find out. So grab your blanket, snacks, and favorite drink and get cozy. But before we dive in, don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. This one is called The Widow's Heart Unbound. The mansion stood like a monument to time long forgotten, draped in vines and shadows, a relic in the heart of the ancient forest. Few dared approach it, for it was said to be cursed, home to a woman whose beauty was as dangerous as it was irresistible. Alara, the Black Widow, had lived within those walls for centuries, an immortal seductress bound by a curse that killed every man who dared to love her. But it had been years since she allowed herself to feel anything. That was until Julian arrived. He came on a stormy night, his clothes soaked through, his handsome face drawn tight with exhaustion. The rain battered the mansion's stone walls, but the thunder was nothing compared to the tempest that raged in Alara's chest when she saw him for the first time. She watched him approach from her window, her dark eyes narrowing with intrigue. By the time he knocked on the great iron door, she was waiting for him. Julian had heard rumors of the mansion, but he didn't believe in curses or ghosts. All he wanted was a roof over his head for the night, a break from the unrelenting storm. He wasn't expecting the door to swing open so quickly, revealing a woman whose beauty seemed almost otherworldly. Alara's gaze lingered on him, drinking him in. His strong jaw, his broad shoulders, the way the wet fabric of his shirt clung to his muscles. Her lips curved into a smile, predatory and knowing. "Come in," she purred, her voice velvet laced with something darker. He hesitated for only a moment before stepping inside. As soon as he crossed the threshold, he felt it. The air, thick with tension, almost suffocating. The mansion's walls seemed to close in, the dim light casting long, flickering shadows. But it wasn't just the eerie atmosphere, it was her. From the moment he entered, Alara was on him like a whisper of silk, her movements graceful and predatory. She brushed past him, her hand grazing his arm just enough to send a spark down his spine. The touch was electric, leaving Julian's skin tingling. "Let me help you," she said, her voice low, seductive. She reached for the collar of his soaked shirt, her fingers deft as they unbuttoned it. Julian caught her wrist. Thank you, but I can." "Nonsense," she interrupted, her eyes locking with his. Her breath was warm against his neck as she leaned in closer. "You're my guest. I insist." Her touch was intoxicating. The heat between them was undeniable, but Julian couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Still, he couldn't pull away. Alara's hand slid lower, tracing the lines of his chest, her fingers lingering on his skin. She was shameless, bold in a way that left him breathless. Alara could feel his hesitation, but she didn't care. For too long, she had kept herself distant, cold, afraid of the curse that doomed every man she loved. But Julian, he was different. She didn't want to resist anymore. She wanted him, and for once, she was willing to take what she desired, curse be damned. She pressed herself against him, her body fitting perfectly against his. Her lips hovered just above his, so close he could feel the heat of her breath. "You don't have to be afraid of me," she whispered, her voice dripping with desire. "I won't hurt you." But it was a lie, and deep down they both knew it. Julian's pulse raced, his body responding to her even as his mind screamed for caution. She was beautiful, dangerously so. But there was something in her eyes, something wild and desperate. He could feel it in the way her hands gripped him, pulling him closer, her breath quickening. "Alara, wait." But she didn't wait. She didn't stop. Her lips found his, soft but demanding, her hands tangling in his hair as she kissed him with a fervor that left him dizzy. The room seemed to spin, the air around them crackling with heat and tension. Julian kissed her back, unable to resist, his hands finding her waist and pulling her against him. The feel of her body against his was overwhelming, her curves pressing into him, her skin cool and smooth beneath his touch. The kiss deepened, and for a moment it felt like nothing else existed outside of them, just the heat, the hunger, the need. But the curse. Alara felt it like a shadow creeping into the room, clawing at her from the inside. Her desire for him was real, so real it hurt, but the love, the dangerous, deadly love, was there too, simmering beneath the surface. She could feel the curse tightening its grip, like a spider wrapping its prey in silk. If she let this continue, Julian would die, just like all the others. "Alara," Julian murmured, his voice thick with need. "What's happening?" She pulled back, her breath ragged, her eyes wide with fear and longing. She couldn't let him die. Not like this. Not because of her. But it was too late. She had already fallen for him, and the curse was unforgiving. I can't," she gasped, stumbling away from him. "I can't do this." Julian reached for her, confusion and frustration etched on his face. "What's wrong?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I love you." The words hung in the air, heavy and terrible. Julian's heart clenched, but before he could respond, a sharp pain tore through his chest. He doubled over, gasping for breath as the curse took hold. "No!" Alara cried, rushing to his side. "Not you? Please, not you." She knew there was only one way to save him. The curse demanded a life for love, but it didn't have to be his. She could still save him if she was willing to give up everything. "Alara," Julian choked, his vision blurring. "What's happening to me?" "I'm sorry," she whispered, her hands trembling as she touched his face. "I'm so sorry." Before he could protest, she kissed him again, this time with a desperate finality. As their lips met, the curse shifted. Its terrible weight moving from him to her. Alara felt the life draining from her, felt her body withering, but she didn't care. All that mattered was saving him. Julian's pain faded as hers grew, and he pulled back, horrified at what was happening to her. "Alara, no." But it was too late. Her body crumbled, turning to dust, leaving nothing behind but her black gown, fluttering to the floor like a fallen petal. In that moment, Julian realized what she had done, that she had sacrificed herself for him, giving up her cursed, immortal life so that he might live. But the mansion stood silent, as if mourning the loss of the woman who had loved so fiercely. She was willing to die for a man who could never truly be hers. Julian stood alone in the grand hall, the echo of Alara's sacrifice lingering in the air. The woman who had loved him so fiercely, despite the curse that bound her, was now gone. Her black gown lay in a heap of dust, a haunting reminder of her tragic fate. He had never asked for her love, and yet she had given everything for him. Her final act of love had freed him from the curse, but it had cost her life. As he looked around the silent, empty mansion, Julian felt a deep sorrow settle in his chest, a sorrow for the woman who had loved so deeply, yet had never known peace. Alara was gone, but her memory would live on, a ghost in the halls of the mansion, forever bound by the love she could never truly have. And though Julian was free, he would never forget the woman who had sacrificed everything for him, leaving behind a bittersweet reminder that love, while beautiful, could also be a curse. In the end, love had been both her undoing and her redemption. That's all for today, my lovely